if that's the case, here's where you reside in the ocean of consciousness. What Ken Wilber calls persona or mask, taken from the theater. This is a total phony. Now, if you end up here, where does all the bad and the ugly go? If you're only good. And here we have a poem by Sam Keen, the psychologist, that is extremely powerful in describing the process of projection, taking one's dark side, the side that you won't admit you have, and where it goes. Now, the other wave can be the scapegoat of choice. And here's how we create an enemy from Sam Keen's book, Faces of the Enemy. Start with an empty canvas. Sketch in broad outline the forms of men, women, and children. Dip into the well of your own disowned darkness with a wide brush and stain the strangers with the sinister hue of the shadow. Trace onto the face of the enemy the greed, hatred, carelessness you dare not claim as your own. Obscure the sweet individuality of each face. Erase all hints of the myriad loves, hopes, fears that play through the kaleidoscope of every finite heart. Twist the smile until it forms the downward arc of cruelty. Strip flesh from bone until only the abstract skeleton of death remains. Exaggerate each feature until man is metamorphosized into beast, vermin, insect. Fill in the background with malignant figures from ancient nightmares, devils, demons, myrmidons of evil. When your icon of the enemy is complete, you will be able to kill without guilt, slaughter without shame. The thing you destroy will have become merely an enemy of God, an impediment to the sacred dialectic of history. One of the things we need to be aware of is all that stuff down here. If this is my level of consciousness, which, as we can see in this diagram now, this ocean of consciousness metaphor, is as far as you can possibly get from your true center, which is here. So no peacemaker possibilities are available here. You're part of the violence, whether you intend to be or not. Here's a better example of what's referred to as the iceberg metaphor of mind, which we're substituting for the wave on the left side. Here's the little prison of persona. Here's the more normal self that admits to some faults at least, and that's the ego, which most people are familiar with, Freud's ego. It's a much larger, roomier prison, but a prison nonetheless. And it's mostly repeating pattern programs from our past and from incidents and accidents. It encompasses or includes a lot of illusions. So To be stuck here is to have a lot of misconceptions. Someone with a bloated ego, I think of the self-made man who worships his maker, comes to mind. There are a number of people that fit that. It's not a place of peace, no matter how large you make it. A Taoist sage, when asked, how do I make this self better? And in the English translation, it was a bit crude. The sage said, pointing to a bucket of liquid and picking up a stick, this is shit. Any way you stir shit, it's still shit. Okay, we don't want to be building an ego. We're looking for, remember, the true center of the peacemaker. Let's put it down here. That's the center we're striving for. That's the center where we find the peacemaker within. So now our job becomes the journey, a universal theme of all wisdom traditions, the journey beneath the waves into the depths of the ocean of consciousness. And there are levels of unconsciousness, and I've made this very simple. Freud's unconscious, an id, a Jungian level of unconsciousness, which is much deeper, and the transpersonal, when the sense of self starts to break apart. Now, the journey, again, is, the trick is to know, or the necessary point here, you have to have an intuitive sense that this center, this true center, though it is unseen, you have to pull from your own experience, life experience, to know that it is there and worth striving towards. If we go through these thresholds of unconsciousness, if we explore our depth, when we successfully cross a threshold, we have more psychic power. If we use that to strengthen the ego, we become more and more violent in the process, more of a bully. What we need to do is use the power to continue the journey deeper and deeper, to the point where the whole sense of self, based on illusions and repeating pattern programs, breaks up, and we're ready to make the leap to our true center. But it is a huge and total transformation. Think of this little bit up here, this little tiny self up here, this crippled self, warped self, as a worm. And to get fully to our true center, we have to transform to the butterfly. It's a total transformation of consciousness, a very different way of seeing the world and being in the world. That's where the power and the courage of the great peacemakers comes from. That's where their wisdom comes from. So up here, we're a cup with a very dry rim. We've got to let it sink to the depths. Now, it's interesting that this is an ancient symbol of prayer. And it translates making a trap for God. It's empty. By emptying all of this content, as we do in deep meditation, for example, we open ourselves to the depth center. We empty out. We don't try to build up this illusion of separateness. We're trying to get to the level of interconnectedness.